Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Discus Laria Collective podcast. I'm your host, Warren. I'm here today with Glenn, and in, I suppose, something slightly different to what our normal content is, we're going to continue a fantasy booking kind of series we started. So we had part one a few weeks back, about 2 weeks ago, I think, and we just kind of focused on what we'd like to see after WrestleMania. So we're going to continue that, some fantasy booking post WrestleMania. So before we get into it, if you're watching this on YouTube, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It'll help us out massively. And then if you're listening to this where you get your podcast, give us a follow on there as well. So in terms of the fantasy booking, obviously, as I said before, we'll end up rambling all day or whatever. So we'll just kind of, I suppose, take three major points or something, more ideas or areas of WWE that kind of need a bit of reworking, or what you would do going forward. So yeah, I'll pass it over to you, Glenn, because me and Darryl were on the first part. So I'll throw it over to you first. Any kind of ideas that comes to your head?
Yeah, so how I would like to see it happen is maybe after the first match of Mania, or even on the second night first match after it type thing. If you get your Adam Pearce, your fucking Shane McMahon, or you get your what's her name?
Sonya Deville.
Yeah, Sonya Deville. Jesus Christ, poor girl. They come out, they say we're not happy with the current state of affairs. So all three of us have met up, and you can bring William Regal out as well. And we've discussed a shake-up. We've already decided on the stars. So we know who's going where, but it won't be in, the stars won't be welcome to their new homes until, Raw, SmackDown, NXT this week type thing. So it immediately creates a bit of intrigue for the post Mania to keep viewership a little bit high. So SmackDown is a slightly different kettle of fish because of two potential fantasy booking scenarios. So we'll deal with Raw and NXT first.
Yeah.
So on Raw, coming off the title defense or title retention, Bobby Lashley beating Drew McIntyre to cement himself as the new big dick in the room. He can open up Raw, and then immediately you have Adam Pearce come out and go, I'd like to welcome the first kind of draft pick for Raw. And it's a fresh off his own title defeat, Roman Reigns being thrust straight into the main event picture to keep Raw kind of fresh. So obviously that's your main event title picture going forward in the short term, with obviously some younger stars getting their up and coming, which we'll address now in a moment. Coming off her title defeat as well, I want to see lots of title changes now at this card. You have Asuka coming out wanting rematch Rhea Ripley, kind of losing her mind a little bit. And fantasy booking for her going forward is that she has a progressive losing against Ripley, and then Io Shirai will debut on Raw.
Nice.
Again, injecting some much needed life into the Raw Women's division. And much like we got with Sheamus and Cesaro in their best of 7 leading into the bar, I think it should actually be very much needed. I'll say that word time and time again over this fantasy booking. But yeah, we'll have Asuka and Io Shirai have a feud. I know it sounds a bit kind of to stick the Japanese stars together, but eventually leading to them in a very dominant tag team where they take the belts and maybe even go down and take the NXT belts, unifying them, and bring the NXT women's division, the Raw women's division, SmackDown division a little bit closer in terms of competition, all in the name of the tag team titles. And it'll begin a redemption arc for Asuka, which will see her lose bad to the likes of Ripley and Shirai, these younger, hungrier talent, and then begin her ascent back to becoming the Empress of Tomorrow and that.
Yeah.
Raw's mid card, I think needs another injection. I don't want to ramble too much, so I'll try to keep it as concise as I can. But I want to see Dominic Dijakovic and Keith Lee make a triumphant return to form, and I want to see Sheamus stay in the mid card for a bit, beat Riddle for the US title, belt hop back to him, and then see those four lads in their own intertwined feuds, and that with maybe a culmination where we get Sheamus on a bit of a losing streak, and with the fact that he had such a good feud with McIntyre, it would be very, very interesting if they want to go either tag team route with them lads, or which I'd prefer is to see Sheamus basically lose it, to basically be like on this losing streak, bad roll-ups, kind of not be treated like Shayna Baszler, because that's a bit mean, but definitely like lose his form and then have to earn it and fight for it back, like John Cena did about a decade ago in his upcoming feud with The Rock, where it started at a loss at WrestleMania and it basically kept losing
Yeah, snowball.
until he eventually beat him back. So it obviously gives Sheamus the scope to win the big boy belt, then say off like Roman Reigns, where you have heel Roman face Sheamus. Maybe different dynamics can be earned and done there because he is a main event player, but him in the mid card keeps the mid card fresh. Obviously, you've seen the work that Riddle, Dijakovic, and Lee can do on NXT. So I think bringing their form to Raw will just like that give it a big upheaval in terms of what they're planning to do. I was initially going to switch the IC and US belts and switch a couple of the players on both teams over, but then I realized that no matter how good SmackDown's IC title picture is right now, Raw's stagnation has to do with its volume. It has not as many stars as SmackDown does, and it needs them. So I definitely think Raw will take a couple of the SmackDown players, maybe even taking fresh off his loss Big E, and also giving a bit of variety then again to the singles picture on Raw, and obviously you pull the New Day onto SmackDown and that. Then with the women's division, this requires its own separate video, but I'll keep it short and sweet. Jackson Baszler lose their titles, as I alluded to with the Japanese mega powers.
Yeah.
They have their own big blow-off feud where they get a few good matches in together, a couple of gimmick matches, give them a good bit of time on the telly to flesh themselves out and take eyes off of them from the tag team and women's singles matches in regards to the title pictures, and then build a tag team division, build, the fact that you can have interpromotional tag teams, you can have your Raw and SmackDown stars from the women's division specifically link up to make solid tag teams again. I'd rebuild. I would keep your Riot Squads, keep your Natalia and Taminas and stuff like that, but like break up like Naomi and Lana, rebuild the Iconics, maybe just like fundamental tag team booking, nothing fancy, just literally get a good foundation started for the year. And I guess that kind of does it in terms of the Raw women's title picture. Let Rhea Ripley go on a tear, leave it at that. It's very straightforward. In terms of SmackDown, I have two booking decisions in mind. One is Edge takes the belt, and then you have a re-debuting Finn Balor, fresh off his NXT loss, come on and be like, you didn't pick me for the title picture, so I want you. Edge to beat Balor. Balor, incensed by his loss, goes on a tear, starts attacking people, and then eventually brings out for SummerSlam the Demon. The alternative to that is Bryan takes the belt and gives Cesaro a run for the belt in or around the SummerSlam kind of picture, and then you have Cesaro take the title. Or you belt hop between the gang of them, where Edge takes the belt, is full on heel Edge. Bryan takes the belt off Edge, injuring Edge, using the fact that they both suffer with the same neck injury problem. And then Cesaro takes the belt off Bryan. Bryan sets off into the sunset by September. A returning Edge challenges Cesaro, and you've got some fucking excellent writing on the wall matches ahead of your time there. Without Reigns on SmackDown, it gives scope for what's going on in terms of SmackDown's much needed monster. You bring Strowman back over, and then in terms of what you're doing with the IC title picture, let Apollo Crews go on a tear, or you belt up between him and Big E if you don't have Big E hop over to Raw. But any of your lower mid card stars that you pull from Raw, you have him challenge Apollo, and you begin to build Apollo as a legitimate threat to the eventual big boy belt. And then who knows how the crowd are going to take it, but that's kind of your sus on that. In terms of the tag team division on Raw and SmackDown, like I said, they've been stagnated for a little while. I think you should take the belts, give them to American Alpha Academy, and let them have a good tear until you get one of the tag teams from NXT get their call up and interjected into there. I skipped over the Raw tag teams division mostly because while it hasn't been doing exactly anything spectacular, I don't really see a need to do too much with it. It's more so the SmackDown tag team division, because it is kind of just had a bit of a shoehorn in terms of when you lost the Usos and you lost the New Day and you gained the Street Profits, they had to have 3 tag teams shoehorned in together.
Yeah.
So I think building that, like evolving that, and letting everyone have their TV time and their gimmick is going to be effective. Let me see. Raw women's division, or not Raw, SmackDown women's division. Belair to take the belt, Bayley to make a more triumphant stab at it. the booking here is going to be a bit vanilla, but I want to see the three of them feud for a bit before we take some of the other women on the show and have them face off against, like I'd like to see Naomi and Belair. Definitely think they could have a barn burner of a match. Very talented women, definitely have the capacity for it, you know. Yeah, look, there's not much to say on it. Like I said, it's minor tweaks. It's taking one guy or girl off of one show and bringing them onto the other, and that. Yeah, I definitely think that it could just do with a minor shake up, you know. And then NXT, well, that needs its own video as well, I think.
Yeah, like I don't really mind NXT right now. I think NXT is all right. I think for the future, like when you think of Balor, like if he goes back up to the main roster, Karrion Kross is another one that apparently was going to get fast tracked. Stuff like that, you kind of need to start establishing main event players now. I feel Pete Dunne was a great show when it came to him and Balor on Vengeance Day. So I feel if you can get maybe another one or two like stars built, obviously you still have Kyle O'Reilly, you still have Adam Cole. I think it'd be pretty cool if they were kind of off TV for a week or two after Takeover. That's my opinion on it. Just to show the war they went through, kind of thing. I don't want to see them coming out hobbling on crutches. I'm sick of that. Just leave them off for a week or two. Build the suspense. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen when they come back. That kind of thing. And then, over them 2-3 weeks, start building a new star or two. As I said, Pete Dunne's already there. If Karrion Kross does stick around for a bit, happy days. And then same with Finn Balor, obviously, if he goes or if he stays, you still do need someone for the future. It's like, I remember a few years back, I can't remember what era it was. It could have been when Drew McIntyre came up, maybe. There was no real main eventers on NXT, from what I remember.
Yeah, that's
that time.
Literally just after Owens, Nakamura, Balor, and Zayn had cleared the division. Joe had gone on commentary and that. Oh no, he had debuted actually. This is around 16, 17. Yeah, you're talking. There was nothing, and they had McIntyre come up and take the belt off of Andrade. I think it was.
Yeah, there was like this thing. Andrade wasn't really like a big name kind of thing, like star. Like, don't get me wrong, he's fucking fantastic. I love him, but he wasn't that kind of star. Like, and then they had Drew McIntyre, Bobby Roode again. He's great to a wrestling fan, but to a casual, he might not be up to that level. So they did kind of
Black, like
they all suffered. Yeah, they all suffered there a bit, I think. And then obviously they had great matches with one another. Then the likes of like Ricochet, Ciampa, fucking Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole, all that North American scene was great as well. But again, once you kind of split the pack a bit, you need to keep your depth as well. So I think NXT is all right for now. Just if they focus on maybe another star or two.
What would you think if we took maybe one or two lower end characters from Raw and SmackDown, swap them with the likes of Gargano and Ciampa? I'm not saying NXT needs a thin out, but NXT is definitely full of main event players. And I think it's to a fault. I think it doesn't leave scope for other people to rise through the ranks.
Well, yeah, that's it. They're full of main eventers that aren't in the main event. It's almost like SmackDown a bit. Like if you look at Rollins, Nakamura, they're on main event, or Cesaro's in the main event to us and stuff like that. But again, they're all in the mid card doing their own thing. And I think, if I could pick it, if I was allowed to just go in there and just try something out, I'd throw Ricochet back down. Because he's not doing anything, and apparently they just don't see much in him. So bang him back down to NXT, bring up Gargano, bring up Ciampa if you want as well. Even have them reform DIY to kind of reinvigorate your Raw, SmackDown, and Tag division, because that's the kind of team they need. It's like when like years ago, if you look back years and years ago, when you had say New Age Outlaws, the Hardys, the Dudleys, Edge and Christian. You had so many like established tag teams, and then if one or two of them weren't on the card, didn't matter. You still had enough talent there, and I think that's what's suffering then. So if you were to bring up Gargano and Ciampa, if you want to bang them back together, or even have Gargano and Theory still together and have Ciampa do his own thing on the main roster, bring up three, send down two or three, send down Ricochet, send down Humberto Carrillo maybe, and maybe Drew Gulak, because if you still have Pete Dunne down there, him and Gulak can go at it, or
they can
have Gulak. Have Gulak team up with Matt Riddle. They had a team on the Indies called Catchpoint. They were a great tag team. It's worth going back and looking at their stuff. It's actually really good, really technical. Obviously with the MMA background of Matt Riddle, and then the kind of technical wrestling ability of Drew Gulak. They weren't the most entertaining, I suppose, if you're looking for big spots, but they were fantastic wrestlers. Do you know what I mean? That's a cool dynamic.
I think while I would like to see the likes of Gulak and Riddle together and stuff, and especially for the tag team divisions to get that life fresh breath of air. I think the tag divisions need more like like you said, DIY,
Yeah.
Revival, New Day-esque type of, dynamic. Like, I know it's biased because of the year we saw them, but the Mania where we had Big Cass, we had the Hardys, we had New Day were hosting, we had all the lads in the ring for that TLC match for the titles. That to me felt like one of the biggest match feeling tag team matches of like last decade or so.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So replicating that a little bit would be good. But I would actually like to see if we're going in line with the whole Cesaro gets a shot at the belt against Bryan with a returning Edge eventually against Cesaro to close out Daniel Bryan's chapter in his career if he's not re-signing. I'd actually like to see Gulak and Bryan reinvigorate their feud a bit at Angle and Lesnar. Their feud was great, and I would actually like to see it where we get the face Bryan, we get Gulak coming back out being like, you remember the work we did, remember where we were going to take it, and it seems like all you wanted to go and do was re-chase the main event Mania and stuff, and now you've lost your title, now you've lost all that, so what lessons have you got from me now, kind of mentor type of thing, and make a very, established storyline where, Bryan and Gulak are going at it for the last round of it, but it's actually, if Bryan's retiring, it's actually to retire Bryan, and I think giving Gulak that role would be very, very useful in terms of where we can take it going forward. Like, if I were to tell someone, oh yeah, Shawn Michaels retired Ric Flair, oh yeah, Undertaker retired Shawn Michaels, people are like, wow, that's fucking iconic. I wouldn't want to see what happened with Angle happen. You remember, like, Baron Corbin retired Kurt Angle's fucking like the wrong move completely.
It is, yeah.
So if it's not going to be Cesaro to retire Bryan, I think giving someone like Gulak the role would be good, and then you can even send him down, because as far as he's concerned, he's beaten the fabled, Yes Movement. He's beaten Daniel Bryan. There's no better technical wrestler, and then he can start having these intricate matches with equally talented stars down on NXT maybe.
Yeah, once you said Yes Movement there, it came into my head a little story that I think would be cool if Edge went full heel. If Reigns retains the Universal Championship at WrestleMania, say, right, and Edge obviously is very frustrated because Daniel Bryan pigeonholed himself into that match kind of thing, and it's wrecking Edge's head obviously week in, week out. I would love nothing more than Edge to go full on like 0506 arsehole Edge, right, where he's like, I hate Daniel Bryan, I need to finish Daniel Bryan, I need to end this guy, and go off on a tear on Daniel Bryan to the point where he cuts, because obviously he's cutting great promos lately. I'd love Edge to turn around and cut a promo just before the fans come back in, say, to full attendance, where he cuts a promo. He's like, I need to kill the Yes Movement. I need to end them. There is no Yes Movement anymore. As long as I'm around, there's no Yes Movement. And then say 2 weeks later, then you have your SummerSlam, you have all the fans back in. Imagine that reaction where they're all like throwing the yes up. It'd be amazing.
That would definitely the revival, pardon the pun, that he like that all of that would need. My one fear is that something like a huge amount of Daniel Bryan momentum going into what everyone is aware of potentially being his last year if he doesn't re-sign, like might make him resign, and then it might make it might make a fizzle rather than a bang, that way.
Because Daniel Bryan isn't someone,
fear about that.
Daniel Bryan isn't someone I can imagine hanging up the boots, to be honest with you. He seems like, if you think about it, he was injured for years and he came back still. It's one of the things he always wanted to get back there. Now, I understand it's because he didn't get to finish on his own terms, but he seems the type of guy that even if he didn't make it to WWE, he'd be playing in the basketball stadium up the road kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? When he's 50 odd years of age, that's what I'd imagine at like a local wrestling.ie indie show.
Yeah. Here's an idea for you. What if, through all of the fantasy booking that we have here, what if, as say Daniel Bryan's exiting, we get someone return? What if we got CM Punk return?
And like bring
to WWE.
And do you mean just like Punk in general, or do you mean like almost like Daniel Bryan and it's like, I need to fight him again?
Yeah, like where Daniel Bryan gets literally, shoehorned into 2 triple threat main event manias, where he gets everything that Punk kind of wanted, where it's like Daniel Bryan's like, I've beaten everyone, I've done what I've needed to do, I've won the championships, I've main evented Mania twice, he's listing his accolades and accomplishments, and it would sour on one particular person who was in the very same boat as him, in the same shoes, side by side, shoulder by shoulder, and just didn't get the same level of recognition
Of
from the
service.
fans in terms of service, in terms of like literally Punk was in the company longer. He didn't get those final shots where, if Daniel Bryan would come out and say, look, honestly, I feel like, when it's all said and done, it can be hopefully called, one of the best in the world. And it's just a quick quip, full fans in attendance. And then if you're not going to have Gulag retire him, if you're not going to have him drop a belt to Cesaro, if you're not going to do all these fantasy bookings at the very, very least, imagine Punk Bryan, and that's his return, is like, you said you're the best in the world. I think you forgot about me, pal. And then you have Bryan go, okay, well, how about we have a match? And it's very like formal. It's just like, oh yeah, sure thing type of thing. And then coming up to the run of it, you have that whole, oh yeah, loser retires. You get full heel CM Punk. He can be your main event player then on SmackDown type of thing. And you can bring all your main event stars kind of back over to Raw and thin out SmackDown's division a bit, because you're going to have like literally 4 big names type thing. You're going to have Nakamura and all that. And then you get all the matches that you wish you could have seen over the last 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting. And I think the heat that CM Punk would get for retiring Bryan would be nearly on par with like the likes of Reigns and Lesnar for taking out
Beating
Taker at Mania,
yeah. And I think when it comes to retiring someone as well, it's a dangerous game to play, because I remember seeing what was it? Taker wanted Orton to beat him at WrestleMania 21. Then Taker wanted Edge to beat him at WrestleMania 24. But it always came back to the same conversation where Taker was chatting to Vince and he was like, it's a great idea. And in Undertaker's mind, he's like, it's establishing these guys as the next big guy, like, and then Vince would always retort with, well, where can they go from there? Realistically, they'll always carry that heat with them. It doesn't matter if you're going in as a heel or you're going in as a face, they're going to carry that heat that they retired Undertaker, or they bet the streak, or they did this. And it's always, it's same with Daniel Bryan. He is loved, world renowned at this stage, in terms of, even when he's a heel, people still are like, oh, it's Daniel Bryan. Like, do you know what I mean? They're all very like that, which is funny, because when he first started WWE, people hated him with the whole, no, that stuff. They were like, oh, he's an arsehole. Yeah. But he caught on. And he's a genuine babyface almost now, in the fact where he could go out and he could beat the piss out of your ma, and you'd be like, oh, gas, what a legend. Yeah. I mean, you would, because he's just that likable. Like, and I think with the likes of like, say for example, if Gulak retired him, Gulak, obviously it would be fantastic in ring wise and stuff, but it would be like, what could Gulak do? Obviously in his, like, you could book it like, oh yeah, well, now that he's defeated Bryan, he could live off that and kind of challenge for titles. But again, to some people, they'd be like, yeah, you retired Bryan, you're an arsehole. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't care for you.
Like Baron Corbin.
Exactly. Suppose, yeah. So I think
you're right now.
Punk and Bryan, though, that would be perfect, because Punk can shoulder that he already has. Do you know what I mean? He's shouldered heat for years, whether it was with people in the business or with fans. Like, to this day, fans still, oh, you coming back, Punk, on Twitter, and he might be like, ask me arse, pal. Do you know what I mean? He might turn around and just snap at them, and they'll be like, oh, I fucking need you to do it. And straight away, they hate him again. But again, he doesn't care. At the end of the day, he doesn't give a shit. So that's what I love about Punk.
Like,
do you know what I mean?
Can you imagine if he comes back, right? And, Daniel Bryan's like, best in the world. And Punk is like, I've only been away for, 7 years or 6 years or whatever. And if he literally goes, I've only been away for 7 years, and all of a sudden Daniel Bryan's become the best. Like, when I was best in the world, Daniel Bryan was maybe second. I don't think you've gotten better with age, pal. And then Bryan's like, well, yeah, well, at least I didn't go off and lose in MMA. You know the way Bryan does the
Bryan can get under your skin a bit, actually, yeah.
Like, Bryan does the whole, like, arsehole face. Like, he did it to Reigns, where he's like, oh, I can make you quit. You can't make me quit, but I can make you quit. And then he's doing the same thing against Edge and all, where you're like, oh, yeah, like that, you'll beat the piss out of your man, but you'll still be like, oh, yeah, but he's Daniel Bryan, It'd be deadly to see, because imagine if Punk's like, hold on, can I stop the game a little bit here, right? So when I left, where's Kane? Where's Triple H? Where's Randy Orton? Where's Batista? Where's John Cena? And he's gonna ask, where are all these like top tier guys? Where are they all? And half of them aren't around. Half of them don't compete anymore. And he's like, and he's gonna scratch his head and be like, so hold on, I'm the best in the world. I leave. Everyone else who was, coming up to my level, Undertaker, Lesnar, all, none of those guys are around, and now we're left with you. And he's going to play, heel bastard CM Punk really well, retire Bryan. And then he's like, right, so who's actually around? And then he's going to look at someone like Cesaro, who's in the business years, as long as Punk is almost, but obviously never won the big belt. And he's going to look at him and he's like, you're the champion. And it's just going to be like, remember when Rock did it to Booker T, where it's like, who the hell are you?
Yeah, it
Like
listens to the
imagine
response
that.
then. Yeah,
And then what you could do, you have this bastard heel Punk that, you know, many fans love, but, you know, hopefully a lot of casuals will hate. And then for your next year's Mania, then you have whoever the hell you want. You have Balor, you have Nakamura, you have, doesn't even matter who. It actually doesn't. Like, you can have the fucking gobbledygook come in and be CM Punk, and everyone who is like a fan of the redemption arc and the underdog stories, like, yay! But they can have that be the main event. So then you give Punk what you finally wanted. You get him to lose in the main event of Mania, dropping the belt to whoever, and then you can have CM Punk turn face for the final year of his run, and then have someone else retire him. Like, you can fucking have AJ Styles or something retire him, or it doesn't really matter. Like, but
yeah,
like, yeah, matches for days. Like, and then there's other people that we did forget, like AJ Styles, like Nakamura, like the feuds that you can give them that don't need to be for a belt. Like, I'm, you know, my mind's racing thinking about some of that stuff. Like,
yeah. No, there's so many like possibilities. Obviously, it's the stacked roster. It's probably the most stacked roster across any promotion right now, and it has been for a while. But again, it goes by usage, what the kind of mileage they can get with the fans, what kind of obviously their in-ring work as well. But like as you said, you can't really rely on one thing. So a lot of these guys, like the likes of Cesaro, like his promo with Seth Rollins on SmackDown, that just painted him in such a bad way. Like, I thought it was a mistake, because Rollins is fantastic on the mic. Cesaro really isn't.
yeah,
It was a mistake putting them two in the ring like that, and especially where it was like, right, say this line, like throw a swing line in. It just fell flat. And then again, that could leave a sour taste in Vince's mouth. He'd be like, oh, you could have done a lot more with that. But again, that's what you fed him. Do you know what I mean? So it's a shame, but I'm hoping now, over the next 6 months to a year, I hope we see a lot more, like not necessarily pushes, but some difference. Do you know what I mean? Because I think with the likes of, I was only saying it to Daryl, with the likes of the fans obviously being out of the loop for a while in terms of at the shows, we've seen a great response from, say, Bianca Belair win the title. Then we've seen unanimous disappointment with the women's division as a whole and how builds are happening. The women's tag team division. So WB obviously are keeping an eye on that to an extent. Whether or not they want to do anything about it is a different story. But once the fans get in, they're going to get vocal about it. Do you know what I mean? So you're going to have people constantly booing through the show, like the way you have constant CM Punk chants a lot of the time. So stuff like that. I actually seen a very funny meme about CM Punk chants, and it said, it was like, nothing's going to be better than this weekend. We finally have fans back at WrestleMania, 25,000+, and they're all going to be chanting CM Punk. And I was like, they probably will, and all.
Like, I wouldn't mind. Like, the live attendance audience, they do come up with some fantastic memes. Like, I was watching I think I was texting you about it. I was watching the Nakamura debut against Sami Zayn, and I think this is the problem with a stagnant series, like, of dozens of main eventers across all three of your shows, is that, like, there's no other big names you can kind of bring into the business that would give you the same, when you have the likes of fucking, you know, Balor in your main event, but you have Sami Zayn and fucking Nakamura open your card, and everyone's, you know, whoa, and their chants and stuff. And it gives it a huge feel, like, and it's actually nearly disappointing that I think we've peaked in terms of the most recent decade of wrestling, like in terms of, you know, 2012 through to 2017, say 2016 even, to a point now, to a fault, where, like, what are you going to do? Take fucking Reigns and McIntyre and Lashley and Balor and Cole and Gargano and fucking Daniel Bryan and Edge, and then you're just going to take them all off TV and expect all the other guys to just fill the boots? Like, you know, like 7 years ago, some of these guys were coming up, you know.
So, I mean, they were built well. I mean, they were building in each kind of category. They were building in mid-card titles. They were building in tag team. They were building in main events, and that's the issue now. Because, as you said, if you were to drop them 8 to 10 names that you just said, who's going to step left? Yeah, who are they going to have to step in and instantly say be a draw, or instantly have some sort of resonance with the fans? Yeah, you're going to get the hardcore fans that'll be like, I love watching Cesaro. I could ask someone who lives on my road, oh, what do you think of this match, and show them Cesaro, and we'd be like, yeah. I used to love The Rock. Do you remember The Rock? That's the way they'd react to that. You know what I mean? Because The Rock was larger than life.
The lads who were in the late 90s were in the mid 2000s, and when the early lads from the mid 2000s took over in the late 2000s, the lads from the late 2000s were coming up, and then now in the mid teens, or whatever you want to call it, the yeah,
20s.
those yeah, the early 20s. Yeah, well, we're in the early 20s, but the guys from the late 2000s coming up were the mid 2000s, mid 20s main eventers. But now in the 20s, there was no guys really otherwise coming up in the mid teens.
This is
They're
frying
also
my
main eventers.
brain. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Like what I'm saying to you is that like you
I
don't
know what you're
have
saying. It's a building block.
like yeah, like
Yeah,
what you had in Orton, Cena, JBL, Guerrero, fucking Benoit, Batista, and all in the mid 2000s. They're like all or most of those, bar one or two, are gone. And then you had all your late 90s lads who were still there up until like the teens, the 2011, 12, 14s. All those lads are gone as well. And then half of your lads who were your mid up and comers in the like late 2000s, early 2011, 12, 14s, they're starting to fizzle and fade out now. And all your dudes who you were building for the last like 3 to 4 years, like, not being bad, but there's no one really young in there. Like, you don't have like point out someone you could equate to a Jungle Boy in the lower card at the minute, like who, Correa or something. Like, he's not main event of Mania. Like, no offense,
no,
he isn't,
not,
like, you know.
Yeah.
Between your massive fucking everyone being let go last year because of the pandemic, and then you have all of the dudes like McIntyre and Lashley. They're not new guys. They're not even that young. Like,
that's the same with Thing. Yeah, same with Nakamura and Balor and all. They're all 40.
Yeah.
I mean?
Like, they're all in the 40s now. This wouldn't be like that big a deal. Obviously, we had that happen in, say, the 90s when half of these lads were wrestling 10 and 15 years anyway as well. But they had another 10 years in them. Like, with the rate at which some of these guys are retiring and hopping over to AEW and all that, like, in what's going to happen in another 5 years? You're just going to be left with what, like Roman Reigns, you know?
Yeah, true. Yeah, it is mad to think. I suppose my only retort to that is bring back Ryback. That's what it is. Yeah.
There you go, the big guy. Back Roman Reigns. Let's
Let's
fucking go.
But yeah, we'll call this video a day then, because we've rambled for quite some time.
It's an hour-long video, pal.
It probably is. So I'll probably end up cutting this. But yeah, I'll end up cutting this out as well. But yeah, so
cut me out. Cut all of every word I say.
So we'll call it a day here. That was just some more kind of fancy booking ideas. Just because, yeah, we did a part one, myself and Daryl. So now it's part two, myself and Glenn. I'm just kind of trying to, see what we'd like to see, I suppose, after Mania with the stars that we have, and how we'd kind of rejig some things. But yeah, so if you're watching this on YouTube, as I said at the start of the show, give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you can. And then wherever you get your podcasts, give us a follow there as well. And then, yeah, hit us up on the socials, The Discus Lariat on Twitter, Discus Lariat Collective on Instagram. And then until next time, then, see you soon.